Dr. Mark Feldman, thank you so much for joining me here today. First off, I want to talk about this issue it was kind of unnoticed in the last couple of weeks of session, but it got a little bit of ink, and it's an interesting topic of sippy cups.
Yes.
And the legislation to put a warning label on these cups. Can you tell me a little bit about this, how it came about, and the need for it?
Sure, happy to do that. By the way, I also want to thank you, because the mere fact that you are here and interested in this sippy cup bill, which by its nature, the term sippy cup makes it sound somewhat trivial, I think that you can appreciate, and I hope that your audience will ultimately appreciate, the significance of this particular bill, because very simply stated, it is an almost unknown problem that when you place a child to sleep with a baby bottle or a sippy cup that contains any liquids other than plain water, the teeth being bathed in that fluid overnight creates an atmosphere for a tremendous amount of dental decay. So we consider this a very important bill because most people are just not aware of it. And whereas it seems very obvious that you don't want to put a child to sleep with some kind of a sugary beverage, the virtually unknown fact is that if you go to sleep with milk in a bottle, which is a very common thing, milk is one of the most cariogenic, creates decay type of solutions. The bacteria that create decay feed on the sugars and the proteins in the milk, and it's virtually the most destruction. We consider this effort to inform the public a very important bill.
Now you have a bit of what I would describe as a little bit of a disturbing picture behind you right now.
Yes, I do.
How often or how many cases like this have you seen regarding this in terms of tooth decay and as a result
Sure.
of sippy cups or the sugar that's...
I'm not sure how well it shows up on the screen, but one case of that is one too many, because dental decay and disease is a preventable disease. It does not have to happen. And something like that, which happened in a 2-year-old, clearly can be prevented just by the simple act of not having them go to bed bathed in this kind of a solution. Studies from the Center for the Disease Control have indicated that there have been an alarming rise in the incidence of decay in 2 to 5-year-olds, which is the group that most specifically would have this kind of a pacifier type or sippy cup or baby bottle going to sleep with them. So there are a 15% increase in decay, whereas decay overall across the country is coming down. In that age group, it's increasing. So there's clear evidence that it's ongoing, and also very valid evidence that it can be stopped by a simple act of letting the child have a bottle before they go to bed, but then brushing the teeth before they finally go to sleep.
With the legislation, is there language in there? Basically, what is the label going to say? What is the warning?
The label basically will just warn parents, and it's not going to be printed on the bottle. It will be an insert, or it will be on the outside of the package, stating that the child should not go to sleep with anything other than water in this particular bottle or cup.
Some people have equated this to like the warnings for alcohol or cigarettes, which is, when you think about it, it's a little bit comical, considering a child with a small cup as
Right.
opposed to things that are probably much more dangerous. So you were just wanted to clear that up. So it's not going to be on the bottle. It's not going to be anything like the picture that we see behind you right now, as they are going to do with cigarettes and some of these graphic warnings.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not going to be like that. No, and we're not going to have these graphic pictures, and we're not looking to scare anybody. But the fact of the matter is that obviously alcohol addiction or smoking has terrible, terrible health risks. What I think most people don't realize is that baby decay on these primary teeth is a very serious health risk for these children, and unfortunately it tends to hit the most neediest of children, those that don't see a dentist on a regular basis. It impacts their well-being. Basically, they're in pain. They live with these terribly decayed teeth and have constant pain. They can't eat properly. They don't function in a school setting. And not only that, but although many people feel that the primary teeth are not important because you're going to lose them, the primary teeth serve a very important function. The primary teeth hold the place for the permanent teeth to come in. They preserve the bone and they preserve space for you and allow for proper development. And if you don't have proper nutrition because your baby teeth are all decayed, you will not develop properly. And you can see systemic diseases start at a very early age from improper nutrition. So yes, it's not quite as bad as a cancer or an alcohol warning, but we feel it is a significant step towards educating the public as to something that they're basically not aware of.
This was not an easy task for the legislature. It didn't pass with, a lot of the bills that passed the last couple of weeks were 62-0 in the Senate, or overwhelming bipartisan support. This one wasn't. A handful of senators voted against this, basically complaining this was a big government step. This was government getting in the way of parenting, telling parents what to do. Could this have been achieved through educating the public, or was this bill necessary to prevent this problem from happening?
Well, I would disagree with those legislators who took a look at it as government intrusion on the lives of the citizens, because we certainly don't intend for it to be that, nor is the bill designed to do anything like that. This bill really is a step towards what we define as oral health literacy. Basically the government's responsibility to educate the population, and then it's up to the population to decide what to do. We're not saying don't sell these, we're not banning the sale of them. We think it's a step of just properly educating the public as to a potential problem that, as I said before, they may not even be aware of.
Okay. Anything else on this topic that you wanted to?
Well, I would like to mention to you that I think that part of the problem with a bill like this is just the name of it. Sippy cup bill.
It's actually printed in the bill.
It lends itself to humor. And last year, when this bill did not pass, it passed through the legislators, but it was not signed by the governor, there was an awful lot of criticism of the bill and a lot of fun being made by several of the news media, not your station in particular, and I thank you for that. But I really would like everybody to understand that, at least in my opinion, I believe that those particular challenges and making fun of Sippy Cup Bill had to do more with the criticism of what was going on in Albany last year than the bill itself. Because last year, the legislators had problems coming to a budget. There were all kinds of problems with the Senate as to who was going to control the majority. So it was very easy to state, look at this, they're managing to pass a sippy cup bill, but they can't pass a budget. That's not the case anymore. And you haven't seen those kind of criticisms. And at least I've been happy to see that any of the news articles that have mentioned sippy cups have also mentioned a quote that I gave them when they spoke to me, that the purpose of this bill is to avoid just what you're seeing on that screen. And that is extensive decay in our most needy young children. Passing of this bill will create a lot more smiles in New York State.
So it has passed the legislature. It has not yet been signed by the governor.
It's going to the governor, and we're certainly hoping that the governor will sign it.
Have you gotten any indication that he will lean one way or the other toward this?
We have not heard any indication whatsoever. But again, I want to emphasize, this bill will not cost anybody any more money. I see no reason for him not to sign this bill. We're not asking for these companies to suddenly pull all the sippy cups off the shelf and reintroduce them. The bill was specifically written so that it's only for labeling that is coming up in the future. All those that are currently on the marketplace can be sold, and they only have to rechange their package inserts once this bill has been passed. There is actually no cost to the manufacturers for this bill, and it will not raise the cost of buying a bottle or a sippy cup to the public.
Just a few extra words printed on their,
That's it.
Their label. Okay.
Let the paper, and especially, I'll tell all of your listeners out there now, please, milk is about the worst thing you can have a child sleep with on an overnight basis.
Milk, that's interesting. I think most people would think it would be like apple juice or some of these sugary
Absolutely
drinks.
right. Right on.
But it's milk.
And yet these kind of pictures are from milk.
Interesting. Okay. I want to switch to a different topic. You've actually been working on a number of different issues
yes,
this legislative session. One that did pass and the governor signed back in June was defibrillators in dental office. Talk a little bit about that and why that's important to have. I mean, they're medical facilities. It makes sense, right?
It does make sense. And you know, you walk around nowadays and you see defibrillators in airports, you see them in supermarkets, you see them in railroad stations, and we felt that as a health facility, dental offices should have access to defibrillators also. It will make the dental office a safer place to be. Great. It will save lives. The incidence on defibrillation, as many of your audience may not know, is that sudden cardiac arrest without immediate defibrillation only results statistically in about a 6 or 7% survival rate. Whereas when you have defibrillation out in the field, you increase the survival rate almost 3 times. So we're not saying that a dental office, you're more likely to have a cardiac episode, but the fact is that if you have one where a defibrillator is available, you are much more likely to survive that sudden cardiac arrest.
I think that's one of the questions out there. We've seen a lot of this in the last 5 years or so. A lot of counties and the state really ramping up the requirements for facilities, sports facilities, and elderly homes and all across the board. Dental office makes sense, but it's medical. Is there, you know, for some procedures, is there a risk that certain procedures could trigger cardiac arrest?
No, there's nothing that takes place in a dental office that would create any more risk to having cardiac episode, other than the fact that for, unfortunately, a good number of people, going to the dentist is a stressful procedure. So just like you're likely to be stressed if you're on a treadmill doing some exercise, and gyms should certainly have these defibrillators, well, if you're sitting in a dental office and you're worried about getting some dental procedure, you're under a stressful situation, it makes sense to be prepared to handle any eventuality. And all of us are trained to do first aid and provide defibrillation. It's part of our basic life support that we get trained in on a regular basis.
Is there any cost associated with that? Or do the specific dental offices have to pay for these devices?
Yes, there will be a cost to the dentist for purchasing the defibrillator. We believe that there's some tax incentives now. We don't think it's going to be a major cost, but I would say to anybody that could complain about the cost, which really should be less than $1,000, how much is a life worth? I have seen episodes of where oral surgeons happen to have these defibrillators in the trunks of their cars, and they've saved children's lives on sporting fields when they were involved in a soccer game, and they were able to defibrillate the child, and the child was able to survive. So there will be a cost. I doubt it will be no cost to the population or to the government, other than, I guess, the dentists might pass on somewhat of that cost in their patient fees.
Great. Another bill that's pending regarding the Medicaid Inspector General. This is about due process for dentists. Can you explain what that means?
You described that very well.
Okay.
Basically, what we're talking about with the Office of the Medicaid Inspector General is a process of basic fairness to dentists. Dentists and other healthcare providers spend an awful lot of their time giving care to serving the neediest people in our state. And what we're really looking to do is to take a system like the Medicaid system, which is unfortunately overly complex, overly burdensome, filled with paperwork. The potential for clerical errors in a simple submission to a Medicaid system is fairly large. And we believe that a fair, equitable system should be in place to recover clerical errors and certainly to stop fraud. We are no way saying that we are looking to make it easier for anybody to commit fraud. We have a code of ethics that all of our members abide by, and unethical behavior is just not tolerated. What we are looking for is a basic fairness that does not currently exist under this Medicaid Inspector General process. For example, if a dentist or any other healthcare provider for that matter is suspected of not filing a claim properly for some type of treatment, there's Currently, under the system, they're allowed to withhold payments to that office until this is resolved. Now, those providers that rely upon these Medicaid income to keep their practices open can't sustain months of withholding fees while these issues are worked through the system. So part of this bill would allow for no fees to be withheld until final action is taken. The provider is allowed to have 30 days to file an appeal. They need to have consistency between what the regulations that are promulgated by the Department of Health on how to handle Medicaid are interpreted by the Office of the Medicaid Inspector General. They should be handled in a consistent manner so that the Office of the Inspector General can't say you've done something wrong if the Department of Health told the provider you can do it that way. So these bills provide basic fairness, and that's what this bill is about.
It's the level of the playing field.
That's about it. Yep.
And where does this bill stand right now?
Right now, this bill has been passed by the legislators, and it's due to go to the governor's office. We are hopeful. You know, we think that Governor Cuomo has shown himself to be a man of action, a man who responds to things that do not seem equitable. And certainly his looking and his handling of issues currently within the Office of the Medicaid Inspector General is a good step. And we feel that his signing this bill would be an excellent addition to level the playing field and make sure that there are no future abuses in this system. If we can ensure integrity in this system, number one, it will increase provider participation, it will increase fairness to patients, and it will increase fairness to what the state pays for these services. A win for everybody.
So two important bills out there awaiting the governor's signature one way or the other.
We're hopeful.
Dr. Mark Feldman, appreciate you joining us today.
I thank you very much for allowing us to explain our position on what we think are very significant legislative initiatives.